Well, hello, everyone. It is that Weems guy here for another episode. And we're recording this on Sunday, April the 20th. And I must take a moment here to scold each and every one of you in the audience for your social media lack of presence yesterday on April the 19th. April the 19th, 2025 was the 250th anniversary of the Lexington battles of Lexington and Concord, and I saw a few people made reference to it, but I saw virtually nothing on mainstream media and virtually nothing on social media. And I really expected a little bit different commemoration of that amongst us gun-loving, patriotic Americans. I was kind of shocked at that such an important anniversary was kind of basically disregarded and ignored. So make up for it. Do something really quick. Once you hear this episode, get on there and post something about, hey guys, everybody, Saturday was the 250th anniversary. All right. Well, with that, we are going to do another TacCon episode, but every guest tonight is a first timer, and we're going to have them go around and introduce themselves. Courtney.
Hello, I'm Courtney and from Kentucky. And yeah, this was my first time. So I was happy to go. I think overall it was a great experience. I heard about TacCon. It's kind of hard to place exactly. I think a lot of people that we surround ourselves with talked about it. Um, and we kind of him-hauled around, and I think we finally did make the decision to go. Because of course it naturally, though well worth it, it is a little pricey. So, but we made it work. And then of course I went with my sidekick Karen because we never are by neither one of us, I don't think, are hard labor by ourselves. Um, so that was nice. Yeah, kind of how we mentioned earlier before we came on, we didn't even get much pictures because we were so busy learning and didn't even think about that kind of stuff. But overall, yeah, it was a good time.
How did you first become aware of TacCon?
Hmm. I've been sitting here thinking if it if it was, oh, I want to say probably we had kind of heard of it, but I think when I went to Range Master Instructor Development, I think that's when we got a little bit more information about it. And I believe we talked to Keel about it a little bit because he was there for that class when we took it in Nashville. And so that's when we kind of got the wheels turning and looking into it more and asking other people questions of, who had been there and things like that, and then made the decision to go.
Okay, the reason I asked that, my first one was in 2014, and you had to kind of be in the know in the training community to even know about TacCon at that point in time. And it had just blown up, uh, so to speak, with the size of the event. And like each year, we're getting close to 50% first timers because it sells out so fast. I remember in my first few years of involvement, we would post the registration, you know, late summer, and about September or October it would sell out. And here a couple of years ago, we had like a sellout within 24 hours. And so
Mhm.
it's like people are just waiting for the links to drop. So I was kind of curious to hear from each of you how you found out about it as well. And was this your first attempt to register and you weren't able to get in before, or you know what was going
Th-
on?
No, this was my first attempt to register, and it was one of those things where like we were camping out on the computer. Like we had a group chat and we were we were all talking to each other, waiting for it and trying to get it all set up and everything. So and we kind of freaked out, I remember, because we were having trouble, I guess because so many people were on there. Um Several of us had to like refresh and go back, and it like wouldn't take in our payment and all. So it got a little nerve-wracking, but this was our first attempt to get in, and we actually got in. So we were pretty excited about that because I had read online that a lot of people were like, I finally made it in after my fifth attempt. So we got very lucky. We're very lucky.
All right, Greg.
Yeah, Greg Rice. I am from the Dallas Fort Worth area. Dallas Pistol Club's my home club, so it was fun to have it there. I guess I learned about TacCon when I signed up for the Range Master Instructor Development. I'll be taking that in October down at Carl's place down in Bastrop or Lincoln or wherever it is. Heard that it was hard to get in. Uh, and so like much like Courtney camped out there on the computer just waiting for the link to drop. And it was met all my expectations. It was a fun time.
All right. Is it pretty well known amongst DPC club, members?
It is. I'm surprised that more of them don't attend that did. I only saw, a couple. Of course, we
Mhm.
had several that worked.
Right.
But I was, there was only a couple of the members that I recognized anyway. I haven't been a member there very long. I signed up I learned about DPC by signing up for TacCon. So
Okay. All
is
right.
how I learned about it. So I'm relatively new to the defensive shooting industry. Where I've been hunting all my life, but
Uh,
about a year ago I started getting serious and have become a training junkie. Just going to Massa Oobs classes and Carl's and seeing you guys at TacCon was just icing on the cake. But yeah, so when I signed up for TacCon, I'm like, Dallas Pistol Club, where is that? And it's like 20 minutes from my house, right? So I'm there every weekend, either working or shooting an outlaw match or something now. But I was surprised there weren't very many folks there.
okay. We'll take a moment to talk about the Dallas Pistol Club. That is absolutely a wonderful facility, and we could not have a better home for TACCON. There aren't many facilities that can handle the number of people
Right.
that attend the event and that have two airports within 20 minutes of it, have all the hotel support, have all the restaurant support, and everything else that goes along with it. There are some ranges that could handle, facilities that could handle the event, but you're looking at 45-minute drives from hotels. You're looking at eating at a Subway and that's hooked onto a gas station or
Right.
something along those lines. And I know some people get bent around the axles over we can't shoot rifles and we can't shoot PCCs and all that kind of stuff at the Dallas. Well, that's not a choice of the Dallas Pistol Club, folks. That is part of their permit from the city to be able to operate. And I'm personally not willing to trade all the convenience of the Dallas Pistol Club, plus the hospitality that we get from the club itself. So if anybody that's DPC, uh, member or board that's listening, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Um, I've been involved, like I said, since 2014, and this is, I think, the best place we have to do it. It's just fantastic.
Yeah, I would echo as a new member there. I think I joined in November
Mhm.
is when I became a member, and they're just a great group of guys, and we're very very protective of our little slice of heaven we call it, right? Because
Yeah.
we police ourselves quite a bit because we don't want to lose that. One bullet over the berm.
Yeah.
Because we've got soccer fields, we've got
Mhm.
houses, we've got highways right there. And
Yeah.
so we love it there. We love having TacCon there. We think
Mhm.
that that's just the best, and I hope TacCon comes back there many many times.
Yeah. Roger that. Frank.
Hi, Frank wrote. I live in the northeast corner of Wyoming. We're a 2 hour drive from any place that's bigger, which is a good thing and a bad thing. It has its
Mhm.
pluses, has its minuses. Excuse me. Um, I didn't have any issues getting in to TACCon. Um, I won't mention his name, Ashton Ray. Uh, he pointed me in the right direction. And Ashton is just he's a great instructor, and I cherish the relationship I have with him because he's just that good. Um, this was my first time, first and only time. I had heard about TacCon, I want to say probably 2017, 18 ish. Had heard about it. I was still corporately employed back then, and uh, making the time. I mean, making the time to train is hard enough when you have a job and you have a family and you have stuff to do. but making the time to go spend basically a week on the road, because I drove down. I did not fly. Flying in and out of here is okay, but you have to go through Denver, and Denver is just forget it. Denver's a zoo. It really is. Uh, so I drove, and taking a week off to go do something like that can be problematic. I'm retired now, so I have the time, and it was great to be able to touch base with instructors who I've worked with in the past, like Tim and Ashton, Tom, obviously.
Mhm.
Dare I say, Gelhaus. He and I come from the same part of Northern California. We were different counties, but yeah, I'm familiar with him and familiar with his work, and I, I try not to pick on him too much. He's a great guy, and is a really good instructor. So that was kind of my TacCon story. I determined that eventually I did want to go. Am I going to go every year? Well, who knows? We have to see. When Tiffany turns the switch on, it's a crapshoot. You may get in, you may not. I hope I do, because it's a great bunch of people. I've been to all kinds of trade shows. I've been to Gunsight, been to the Revolver Roundup, been to Thunderstick Summit, been to all kinds of junk, and this is literally the best run event that there is, and that's got Tiffany's fingerprints all over it. She's amazing. That's the very least I think that could be said about the level of effort that's obvious that she puts into the event.
Well, I'm sure if Tiffany were on here tonight, she would also mention Ock and Martin
Wow.
and Chris and all that. This they're very pivotal in that, and I think we also have to go back to DPC with that as well. We get a
Oh
lot of
yeah,
get a
absolutely.
lot of support from the club. It's also we've been, oh gosh, this is probably the fourth or fifth year we've been in Dallas, and so having the same vendors, having staff that knows what we're going to need when we get there, all that kind of stuff. Uh, we're starting to get some institutional memory on that versus when we were the traveling circus and we're in a different location every couple of years. And uh, I got to say, there have been some years that have not been as smooth as this year and last year to some extent. Um, but this year went exceptionally smooth. Like the staff were like, okay, when is the other shoe going to drop? Because this is going away. We had no catastrophes that we couldn't readily handle, and and so
I think a food truck was late on the first day.
yeah,
That was the worst thing that I think I saw the entire time. Was like, oh, food truck's like, meh, whatever.
that kind of goes back to the institutional history of the whole thing too. All right, we had three food trucks this year. I remember the first one I went to, or excuse me, the second one of the year we went to the Memphis Police Academy. There was a Boy Scout troop with a single kettle grill cooking hamburgers and hot dogs,
Oh,
and that was it. If unless you left the facility, and now we've got the three food trucks that come and set up and everything else. We've gone to lunch, been an hour and a half, and it's kind of funny reading through the reviews. You see a mixed bag. Oh, we love the extended lunch. It made it feel so much less rushed and everything. You get some people that are, the lunch was too long. I wanted to get back at it and everything. So you can't please everybody all the time. But yeah, they can. You get complaints if the lines are too long. You get complaints, if the lunch is too long. Everything else, but all we can do is try to make it run as smooth as we can. All right, Karen.
hi. I'm Karen Farthing. I am also from Kentucky, the other half of the Karen and Courtney Roadshow. uh, Big part of the reason that Karen and Courtney travel together is that Karen requires adult supervision wherever she goes. So there's that. TacCon, I had actually I had heard about it um, several years ago. I think it was the last time that it was held in New Orleans. Um, And I was like, oh, wow, that looks like fun. Maybe we should try to go. And then I found out who was going, and I was like, oh, yeah, I don't deserve to be there yet. So um, I had to really, really put the brakes on that and learn how to do a couple of things well um, before. And I'm not going to lie, I was still, I'm not a terrible shooter, but like in these circles, I am bottom 30% easy. Um, as far as uh like like match quality shooting and things like that. I am not up there with the high performers. So it was still a little intimidating to swallow my huge ego and show up somewhere where I knew I was not going to show well. Um, but that said, lots of learning occurred, and I had a fantastic time. And like we said before, I was so engaged in what I was doing that I forgot to take pictures. And so I don't have, and I forgot to make time to go and see other people that I knew were going to be there that I had been wanting to meet for a long time. I was busy. I was fully engaged in what was going on. And I do sometimes have that brain that's a hamster on a wheel, squirrels at a rave, ducks not in a row. So keeping my attention for multiple blocks at a time like that, very well done. It's like y'all knew I needed enrichment in my enclosure, and you built it especially for me. So,
All right. All
uh,
right. Flesh out that you didn't feel like you deserved to go and you needed to do stuff to prepare. I want to hear more about that.
oh, wow. Okay. So, you know how I am one of these people that, and I think that almost everybody that I have met in this world, we pick things up very quickly because we listen, we pay attention, we try to learn. And struggle is hard for us because it feels like a personal failure, not just something that we're trying to learn. And so a lot of people's maybe self-worth is tied into how well do I do the thing that the people that I want to like me are doing. Can I do that well enough to fit in with this crowd? And the answer was no, that could not. And
Okay.
so I am not a shy person,
No, no,
but
you are
I
not.
don't I don't intentionally want to go out and drop my knickers at high noon on the court square. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If it happens, it happens, but that's not the plan. And so yeah, I really felt like I had quite a bit of learning to do before I was comfortable stepping up with with this group.
Okay.
Does that make
Uh,
sense?
you mentioned New Orleans. We were there one year, and Frank, let me tell you, that was an example of a TacCon where things did not go well
Oh wow.
at all. Um,
So maybe it was good I didn't go.
that was the environmentals were rough. It rained a lot. It was cold, damp, uh, just really bad. The hotel situation. I went to the gas station next door and bought air freshener and carried it with me so that when I walked, I could open up the door and spray it in the room
Oh no.
before I walk. And I would shut the door and let it sit in there for a few seconds before I would actually come in and enter the room. And from my hotel window, I watched the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office wrestle an alligator out of the roadway. Um, it rained so bad that one of the shooting bays filled up with water. And Rick Remington, who moves dirt for a living, saw a piece of unattended heavy equipment and got on it and dug a drainage ditch to drain the shooting bay. And I have a pair of jeans that I absolutely loved that I ruined going to a kneeling position that I have never been able to get that Louisiana swamp goo. out of it. So like the right knee of that pair of jeans that just still has what 2018, 2019 Louisiana mud in it. So just ruined those. Um, we were at a facility that was a shooting range and a racetrack, like an auto racing track. And one of the big motor companies had a contract to test stuff there, and they showed up demanding that some of our stuff be moved so that they could do road testing. And so we had to accommodate that. They never stopped like the motorcycles and everything that run in. So if you think it was hard to hear in the tents over the gunfire, try to think it was hard to hear in the tents over the gunfire and the cars racing the motorcycles coming by
Oh,
on every lap. It was rough. Uh, I'm glad we did not go back there the next year. I don't know that I would have made it myself if it had been there. Um, and one humorous side note on that, we got there on Friday morning to come in, and they put a wristband on everybody as you came through the gates. This was the facility itself. Well, Friday evening, I rip it off as I take a shower and everything, and come back up Saturday morning, get there, and the guy's like, "Where's your wristband?"
Oops.
I said, "Well, I took it off when I took a shower." And he starts scolding me. I said, "Wait a minute. Are you not taking a bath every day, sir?" And he got mad about that and gave me another wristband. It was just awful, awful, awful. I'm
Called
glad
him
we
out.
didn't go back there that year. Um, but to your comments about the match, I wanted to tell you and everyone else, uh, the top half of that match turns over every year. You'll see guys win it one year and not even make the finals the next year.
well, and I was looking at the scores,
Hmm.
and there's not but 2 seconds separating the top performer from the bottom performer
Yeah,
time wise.
yeah.
So, I mean, take it with a grain of salt, you know,
Hmm.
but uh, I need to be 2 seconds faster for next year.
Yeah. Well, one year we were in Arkansas. I was sixth overall in the high law man, and I didn't even make the finals the next year. Gabe White won the whole thing one year and didn't make the finals the next year. So it's so tight that it flips and tosses and turns. And so don't get upset over, well, I was so low in it this year, whatever. Next year you may go and be in the top half of the thing, or be even close to the finals or whatever. The first year I went to TacCon, I did not shoot the match. My shooting time was in the middle of a classroom block that I did not want to miss. And that you had to go when your shooting time was then. Wasn't as flexible as it is now. The next year, um, I initially wasn't going to shoot because of the same thing. And then Martin's like, "Wait a minute, you're presenting. We'll work you in whenever you want to go." And so I ran to the truck and scrounged up some ammo and came in and had a malfunction and finished 14th. But I felt like I shot better that year than I did the next year when I was in. I think if I hadn't had the malfunction, I don't know where I would have finished. And so, like I say, it turns over so tightly from year to year. So keep plugging at it. Don't be afraid to jump in there and go. All right. So, kind of want to know what each of your expectations were for TechCon. Uh, Courtney, what did you expect to get, and did you get it?
I expected, of course, a lot of big names there, which I kind of, and this is more of a me problem, but of course, very intimidated going in. I don't know these people. And a little bit of Karen, that, or kind of a little bit of what she said was like, oh gosh, and I'm probably going to go in here and make a fool out of myself. Um, but it did help kind of knowing too about, like the whole, I don't know how long you guys have been doing the picking schedules and things like that, but um that I did, because of the app kind of getting that taste of that organization. I did expect a lot of organization, and I got it. I mean, people were where they were supposed to be when they were supposed to be there. um and I'm a very organized person, so I really did appreciate going in and being able to um all right, this is I'm gonna go into this classroom, here's my shooting classes. So now where can I plug in between for the classrooms and things like that? Like that's probably the biggest thing that I can say I noted was the organization.
Okay. Oh, Greg?
Yeah, I was very lucky. Tracy Becker Thronberg, I'm sure many of you know her.
Hmm.
She is kind of my coach and mentor from Carl's, and she stayed with us and drug me around TacCon and introduced me to a lot of folks. I got to meet Frank and Eric and John Yu. You probably don't remember. It was super busy, but everybody knows Tracy. So she had set me up for success, right? Of what to expect. And she told me, she says, you want to take classes from the old guard, because they're not going to be here very much longer, and the folks that are a long ways away. And that's what I did. I got to sit and feast listening to Farnham. I got to listen to Claude. I got to hear the chess club and listen to you guys. I took a Gale House class, and Givens, listened to him talk in a class of his, and it was just it exceeded my expectations. It left me wanting a lot more, because, in 2 hours, you guys are trying to squeeze a 2 or 3 day class into 2 hours. And it left me just wanting more. As a matter of fact, it wasn't 2 days after I left there, I've signed up for Galhouse's class, 2 day class in Farnham's with his those laser things coming up, right? So like I say, I'm a training junkie. I just love to go learn. And so it exceeded my expectations for, and yeah, if you guys were in any chaos, you didn't show it. Tiffany and Akil and Lynn and everybody were just stellar at running this thing. It was awesome.
Uh, Tracy steered you right because, like I said, Farnham, you, Tom, Claude, some of those guys, they're in their 70s.
Right.
And, I personally, I want to be selfish and keep them around for forever, but we know that's not
Right.
going to be the case. So take the chance to get those people while you can. Um, and then the other thing you said there about people that are far away from you. Funny thing at a TacCon a few years ago, I walked in and one of my locals from Georgia was in my classroom and I threw him out. Like, get out of here. He said, what do you mean? I said, you live an hour from me. Go. There's like a guy that lives on the other side of the country from you.
Yeah.
Go over
Yeah.
there. You can see me and we can meet for lunch.
Yeah.
You know, go take a
Carl did yeah, Carl did the same thing. I told him, I said, well,
uh,
I feel like I should take one of your classes, Carl. He goes, don't you dare. He goes, you're down here at my range all the time. He goes, I got classes with you all the time. Go see some of these guys you don't get to see.
yeah.
And that's what I like about this community, because they'll shoot you straight. They'll
Mhm.
steer you the right way, and it was just an awesome experience.
Uh, you guys touching on how smooth it was. Martin Hoffert is generally in charge of a lot of the operations
Hmm.
of the thing, like all the facility and stuff goes. Martin attended some live fire blocks for the first time in decades this year because it was running so smoothly that he
Oh,
went
that's
in and took
cool.
some
Good for
classes.
him.
Yeah. All right, Frank.
Well, I mean, I would echo a lot of what Greg said. Uh, I don't think I had really high expectations. I didn't really try to set any expectations at all. I came in with the attitude that I was going to be a sponge and just try to, soak up as much knowledge as I could. Uh, Being able to hear John Farnham speak, and I think largely extemporaneously. I could be wrong, uh, but listening to him doing the session with Claude, uh, doing a session with Moss, these these guys, you know, those of us who have trained with Tom, we kind of understand the idea of a living legend, because Tom absolutely is one.
Mhm.
There is no doubt. And he probably hit me for saying that, but it's the truth. The man is a legend in this community, and so are a lot of the people who he brings to this event, clearly. And having that opportunity to listen to those guys, to people who I've not had the opportunity to train with before, because I've been training with other people or pursuing different things, and offloading some of that knowledge that I can inform into my own curriculum and help my students and keep what they teach going.
Yeah.
That to me is more than worth the price of admission. That's gold, to be able to have that opportunity. And I got my sponge well filled. I can tell you that. The sessions, I've got like 25 pages of notes that I'm still kind of shuffling through and picking out the real learning points. I had a great session with Tim and Ashton, a live fire block. And I was glad that I got it. I wish I had it before I shot the match. I might not have finished 107. I might have finished, 90. Uh, I wasn't astounded. I wasn't surprised or astounded at the quality of the participation in the live fire blocks and in the matches. There's a lot of amazing shooters who are part of this larger range master family, and to be able to sit down and break bread with folks like that. And yes, Tracy is a people magnet.
Yes.
She's amazing. I don't know too many people with as much outbound energy as she has. She's pretty amazing. Um, and she attracts people, and people make a circle and get to know each other, and it's part of building the community, and that's what these kinds of events are really all about. It should be about the astounding shooters aside.
Yeah. You and Greg both hit on two of the key, I guess, benefits of TacCon. Is one is it serves as an advertisement for all the presenters. And Greg, the fact that you came out and immediately signed up for classes with two of the people that you were able to sample, that's fantastic. And then Frank, talking about you're getting to sample all these other people that you wouldn't normally be able to get to all in one place. And I think that's pretty special as far as the event goes. All right. Karen.
How to unmute. So, Courtney and I had basically two missions when we came to TacCon this year. It was everything that we were expecting. But we're familiar with Tiffany's work and Akil's work. We are very familiar with Tom. We're familiar with you. We're familiar with Hearn. So we kind of knew that we were expecting a very well organized, well run event. Had it not been well organized and well run, we would have been very surprised. Also, the porta-johns were amazing. This coming from a girl who has had to use the porta-johns in Kuwait.
To mention the porta-johns.
They were freaking amazing. We have like porta-john trauma. You don't understand. You have no idea. So that was definitely a high point. Everything was clean. It was well organized. There was no trash. A lot of times you get a whole bunch of people who have different ideas of what, clutter should be. People weren't throwing their trash on the ground. Now, I don't know if that was because they took Tiffany's words as a promise and not a threat, and decided that they would clean up after themselves, or if she had a little group of minions going around picking up trash all weekend. I don't know.
Some of both.
Some of both. Okay. So, but it was very well run. The parking, very well organized. You know how sometimes you show up to an event and it's just like willy-nilly, whatever, park your car wherever you think you can. This was very nice. The gravel parking lot was very nice. How many times have you had to park in a muddy pasture? somewhere. And then you try to get out and you're getting snooped out by somebody's winch because, you know, it's just how it goes. So that was really, really nice. Courtney and I were both there to learn, and we finally got brave and kind of started our own little company in January of this year. And so we were using this as a litmus test of basically, can we validate that what we're doing is the right thing? And that what we have learned over the past, Jesus, it's been 8 years, hadn't it, since we started training together, me and you.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So if we were able to take all of the, not just the high points, but the little nuggets that you pick up along the way, because, you know, fundamentals is fundamentals, but teaching style, organization style, message, all of those sorts of things that people don't think about when they decide to hang out a shingle and be like, yep, I'm an instructor now. You got to understand, we came from the worst background, very institutional. I mean, I was a firearms instructor in the Marine Corps. You know, she taught for her agency for a lot of years. So not exactly, don't get me wrong, it is what it is. The mission is completely different, but it's not applicable to what we're trying to do now. And we got some really good like internal feedback and validation that yes, we are doing the right things and taking the right approach. And we picked the right instructors, because that's hard too. I mean, would you, that's kind of our discussion that we had on the way home. Did you want to add anything to that, Courtney?
No, I think you highlighted about everything I was thinking about once I was done talking, and I was like, oh crap, I didn't say that either. but no, it was you know, we expected a networking event, and you know, to kind of and also to make sure that we were keeping up with what's going on in the industry right now. You know, what are people interested in, and making sure we were doing the right thing. But let me see. I thought there was something else, but I think it's unslipped my mind now. But yeah, I think that was it.
But yeah, so like a lot of the things that I learned is not anything that I will ever teach. That was like for my own edification. I'm not qualified to teach that stuff. Lord have mercy, Steve Moses and Alan McGee are saints. We're just going to put that out there. And that was a dangerous class. I didn't realize how dangerous it was to teach that, the retention position shooting, to a whole lot of people. I never felt like I myself was in danger, but I could see, you know, they ran a very safe class. They were, you know, really, really good about that. But I would never want to teach that. You know, I don't, there's a whole lot about that I don't understand. And it like, he must have been a dancer or martial artist or something like that. He's a very graceful person, and he understands kinesics and how the body moves and why we move it this way. And those are conversations that I can't have, you know, because I don't have that depth of knowledge. So you think you're getting one class and one lesson, but what you're actually getting is 2 or 3 other ones. Wayne Dobbs, great class on, you know, trigger management. You know what else I got a class in? How to run a line, how to run it efficiently. I mean, just things like that, little nuggets like that. You think you're going to class to learn one thing, you think you're going to listen to this certain lecture on this thing, but you're like, oh, hey, guess what else I'm learning how to do, you know? And so Moss was excellent. The information was great, but you know what was amazing was his delivery. It was beautiful, you know, and he managed to keep everyone's attention. He had the right, like just the timbre of his voice, everything like that was amazing. And those are things that you need to pick up and be like, well, I can't be Moss, but I could be like Moss. What can I steal from his delivery that would work for me? Those sorts of things that are in addition to the subject material. Those things are absolutely invaluable. And you can't pay enough money to learn that. I don't know how to explain it better.
That was very well done. It's funny that you mentioned the porta potties. Uh,
They had running water and little flushies. It was great.
Tom was very proud of those, and those came with a pretty hefty bill attached to them. I'm not going to say how much was spent on the porta johns. I will say that the price of tents has doubled from our first year in Dallas till this year. To give you an example of how much money gets spent on things, so you understand why the admission is what it is. Last year, Thomas spent $700 on glue, the spray glue to put the targets up.
Wow.
Right.
Uh,
Like I said, I'm not going to go into the breakdown of everything. Uh, the parking. One of the limitations is on the event is how many people can we fit in there and park. Uh, we tried doing a shuttle and did it 2 years, and was it the 1 year or 2 years? But we tried doing the shuttle, and at a time like 10 people rode it the whole time. That's it. And how many? It was several thousands dollars to pay for the shuttle that 10 people used. And I understand that we all want to put our gear in our car. We want to be able to walk back to our car and get our stuff and the light. You want to carry your drinks. And it's hard to do that on the shuttle bus, but that also limits how many people that we can fit into the event. And of course, you get good people with, they're helpful and they want to suggest good things. Well, park people across the street. Well, that's private property. The person may be willing to do that. They may not be willing to do that. Um, so some of those things, you know, while people may offer what they think is a good suggestion, the logistics of it just are incapable of pulling off. But Tom was very proud of the porta potties this year.
Well, they were very well done. They were nice.
I will contrast that to the 2 years we were in North Little Rock. Uh, there was no running water at the facility at all. Even for the people that like coffee, we had to bring in gallons jugs of water to fill up the coffee. There was because where that range is located, you have one municipal water system ends like 100 yards from it, and another one does, but it's um, completely without running water and the like. Excuse me for a second. Frank, say something smart first.
Say something smart. Okay. Um, the facilities at the club are excellent. Um, I really like the way that the place is laid out. Um, Once I understood kind of the surrounding areas, and Greg, you would know this better than I would, but I was kind of like, what the heck are these giant concrete slab walls? This is crazy. This is like being in Alcatraz or something. But then once I understood what it was all about, I was like, oh, well, yeah, you got to do that because it was when we were, I think first day I was on the range with Rhett Newmeyer in his deep cover class, and just incessant planes on approach to, I'm guessing it's DFW that's close by. Uh, and I'm just thinking, every one of those planes goes over, and if there's one shot a little bit high and it happens to catch a rock, and that bullet goes like, oh, yeah, that was just I'm amazed that they can keep the venue, and I'm glad that they do, obviously, because we all need places to shoot. But that's got to be a special kind of logistics, especially what did Tom say? 250,000 rounds fired over the course of 3 days. When he put that on social media, I was like, that many? And obviously no accidents, no extra holes, nothing left the facility. that's a pretty good testament to the caliber of people that are coming to the event.
All right. Karen did a really good job of summing up some great things that she took away from the various classes. So I'd like to go around and kind of hear everybody else's takeaways, kind of in Karen-esque fashion there. So Courtney, we'll start with you. What were your big takeaways from things?
Um, let's see. I was kind of looking over, I was trying to have my schedule ready to try and jog my memory of even some of the stuff I took, but I would say probably probably the class I got most out of was the intro to deep concealment. Um and that was Rhett's class.
Mhm.
Because that's something, I mean, I think I'm confident to speak for most women that we very much struggle with proper concealment. Um, and so I'm not immune to that either. And there's been times where, you know, and I've spent so much money on holsters and all these things, and like and I've also I mean, not that this is a bad thing, but issues with concealment has even jump started lifestyle changes for myself. So, but even with all that, it's still been a struggle. So taking his class, I think that was the one I think I enjoyed the most, because he taught me a lot of things that I didn't know and made me so that I am more likely to carry as often as I need to, which is every day. So, and also I work in a non-permissive environment, so that's been another struggle. And so that was helpful to me in that aspect as well. So now I think I'll feel more comfortable. I mean, I have been since the class. I've felt more comfortable even carrying at work, and not been so much, not have all that anxiety like, oh my God, is somebody gonna know? But so no, that was really good.
All right. Anything from any of your other classes that you liked?
The other ones, let's see.
I'll tell you while you're thinking, we'll go to Greg and then we can
That
come
work,
back
yeah.
around.
Yeah, I had three things. I jotted some notes down before we started here. I know in Farnham's class that morning, one of the things that jumped out at me was that he said the importance of verbalizing during tense situations, whether that's with a partner or a good guy with you, or whether that's with the bad guy saying, "Hey, I'm armed, I'm scared, I've got a weapon." The importance of that, and he said, and also practicing that, because you're not going to be able to, your brain's just not going to be able to think of new things to say when you're on the edge there and freaking out a little bit. So I really like that. Given's self-awareness class was just it hit. I've always thought of that, and I've heard others talk about it, but Tom just has a way, as many of you know, and it's even inspired me here of late. Frank knows, he's seen him. I've kind of started a little mini series posting on social media about self-awareness, because I think, in a self-defense situation, the gun piece of it, if it comes out, is what, 3 seconds, right? Where we can practice self-awareness and maybe avoid that gun for a long time before that. And there's so many people that whether they carry a gun or not, my daughter, my wife, my grandchildren, they need to be self-aware and aware of what's going on around them. And then one of my favorite classes, and I don't say it because just you, but that TacCon chess club, um, was really good. And I don't know which one of you guys talked about this, but the interleaving of skills, not just practicing one skill, but stacking those skills. And I think we were talking about free throws at the time, right? And just jumping around and practicing different skills instead of just focusing on one thing. And I've really tried to apply that to my range time and my dry fire time, to try to incorporate some of that into to make myself a better defender if that time ever comes, which God, let's hope it doesn't.
Interleaving is one of my favorite topics, and I know I hit on that, but Eric and John also hit on it as well. I will say that one of my live fire sessions was nothing but interleaving the entire time, just because it's a great way to maximize, uh, get a lot of things done in a few amount of rounds.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I
I'm
wish
not,
I'd have had your live fire on that because I've really, it's really stuck with me.
yeah, I'm not big on like going and spending like a lot of rounds, like working on reloads. All my reload practice is dry. If I do a live fire emergency reload, it's because it's mandated in a course of fire, unless I'm doing some sort of interleaving drill where I'm linking it to something else that I'm doing. Um, yeah, I don't chase the sub-second draw because that was a whole other class. Um, I want to make take a box of rounds and get more use out of it than just working on one thing. And so there's ways to link into that. Um, we talked about that in the other episode that we did on TacCon, but it's always amazes me as how Eric and John and I never discussed the studies that we're going to do other than, hey, I'm doing this study to make sure we don't both, we don't all show up doing the same
Right,
one.
right, right.
Um, but they all tend to link and build on each other.
Mhm.
We met in the lobby Thursday night and handed each other, like we handed John our thumb drives and consolidated PowerPoints.
Oh, that's funny.
And then we walk in and teach the class. And as I walked in the tent, they said, "You better get to the front of the room. You're up first." And we don't coordinate it. We don't do anything. We each come in with our own thing, and it's just amazing to me how we all tend to be on that same wavelength each time.
I thought it was very
So,
well done. I learned a
thank you.
lot in there. And we need to see some of those interleaving drills, right? Because most drills are just one thing, right?
Right.
And so we need to see some of those interleaving drills because I failed to get your class.
All right. Well, I am working on putting together a class that will be under the Rangemaster umbrella that will have a lot of that in there. So hopefully that'll get rolled out at some point in time this year if my work schedule will just get some semblance of sanity.
Yeah.
I don't want it to get, I'm not counting on it being sane. I just want it to have some semblance
Right.
of
Right.
sanity. Uh, and I can't blame my organization from it. It's outside factors that are driving this, but we are in complete state of upheaval. All right, Frank.
Yeah. I'm a note taker. I've been sitting here looking at my notes, and one quote that I captured that stands out to me, and I think it's applicable across everything that we talk about in what we do. And it came from Moss, and he said certain strategies which have become conventional wisdom will not work. And I was just I when I wrote it down, I was like, that's heavy. That's really heavy. And he's talking about in court. And
Mhm,
I'm thinking in terms of, okay, so like you talked about, Lee, with the reloading,
mhm.
right? I don't I don't work that much on reloading either. I and anybody who knows me knows I work a lot with revolvers, and I give props to Claude who shot a revolver in the match. I was going to, and then I chickened out. Um, I probably should have. I might have done better. Who knows? Um, I work on keeping the gun full. I don't work on empty gun reloads and
Mhm.
all that. It's like, okay, I fired a couple. All right, I need to get a couple more in there. I fired three. Okay, I need to get three in there. That's what I do. And Moss's point, even though obviously he's talking about it in court, it just made crystal sense to me. Of you cannot rely on conventional wisdom to be right because it might not be. Um, in the live fire blocks, I was able to I got into Rhett's deep cover class. I think I was a little overmatched in it, but I did it and it was fun, and I learned. And Rhett's an amazing shooter. There is, I mean, there's just watching him at work is like a science class. But Tim and Ashton's "Go Coach Yourself" block. I when I saw that they were on the schedule, I said that's going to be good. I think I need to sign up for that, and I requested it, and luckily enough, I got it, and I was rewarded with some really deep level learning that reinforced a couple of things that I had done with Chuck Haggard a couple of months ago in his Pocket Rockets class, and I was just like, the light bulb, not just one, lots of them were going off, and I was just like, oh, this makes so much sense. And I don't know how else I was going to get that, because Ashton and Tim are on the East Coast, and I get to the East Coast rarely, so that was a great thing.
Could you give an example of something that Moss talked about that has become conventional wisdom, but it just doesn't work?
Um, well, looking at my notes again, um, uh, let's see. No, I don't have context. I
There you
just
go.
got the quote.
I actually
Yeah.
have one.
All right, go ahead.
The concept of an affirmative defense. There are a lot of states that have already passed laws within the last 4 or 5 years, stating that in these particular, instances, use of force type instances, it is no longer necessary to establish an affirmative defense, because basically they said you've got to go back to the presumption of the defendant does have the presumption of innocence, and the state has to prove its case, regardless of the fact that you said, yes, I shot this man. That's not what's in question. What's actually in question is, was the shooting justified? And so the concept of an affirmative defense, which used to be conventional wisdom when you went to court, might not apply. It's still not a bad tactic, don't get me wrong, but it may not legally apply anymore.
We've got 50 states plus the District of Columbia. So that's 51 sets of local laws that we have to deal with. And I know state and local can vary somewhat, but in one state you may have, if you raise an affirmative defense, the state has the obligation to disprove it. But in another state, if you raise an affirmative defense, the burden may be on the defense to prove that defense was valid. It's not as simple as people make it out to be in little clips and everything. It's the jury instructions.
Yes. Yes.
I investigated a deadly force incident in which the person who was shot lived. He pulled a gun on two deputies, one of which had a very effective response. And deputy shoots him, the guy survives, and he is being tried for aggravated assault. 2 counts on the deputies and 1 count on the other half of the domestic that was why the deputies were there, plus a bunch of other charges. And the video was out on YouTube. I saw all of the internet discussion that took place about that incident. But I was also in the courtroom. And the defendant in that case made a very compelling argument from the stand that he thought his home was being invaded and that the deputy's flashlight was shining in his eyes, and all he could see was the light shining in his eyes. And that's why he pulled a firearm. And I was in the courtroom while the jury deliberated, and they came back and asked to watch the video of the event again. And they paused it and went frame by frame. And as the deputy was giving commands to draw the weapon, he had his pistol at a low ready, and the flashlight was shining on the floor, not in the man's face.
Oh.
Nobody in the internet discussions hit on that. And had the flashlight had been up in the man's face, I'm pretty well convinced that the jury would have voted to acquit on that. Because I got to tell you, I'm sitting there listening to the guy on the stand going, oh, wow, I just testified as an expert witness for the prosecution in this case. And I'm starting to think, walk down that reasonable doubt trail. And then when they watch that in the videos, okay, he's saying that the flashlight was in his face. Well, let's look and see where the flashlight was. And thankfully, the deputy had great muzzle discipline, great flashlight discipline. It was bouncing it off the floor up, filling the room. And that's something that you're not going to get in the commentaries that people love to offer without having talked to people who are actually involved in the incident and who are actually in the courtroom. Yeah, it's I recently watched the video of a police officer that was involved in a deadly force incident. And watching the video before I talked to him about the incident, I immediately had a couple of questions come to my mind. And then when I watched it again with him giving me commentary as I was watching the video and explaining why all of a sudden he moved to the left. Because he was backing up in a straight line, then all of a sudden he started moving to the left. Well, the video doesn't explain why he did that. But he says, I knew my car was behind me somewhere and I didn't want to get pinned against my car. So I started moving to the left to avoid that from happening. Well, that's not narrated on the video. It's without having that interview with him. Wouldn't know it. Now, obviously, because we're watching the video, we know something is going to happen. And so I'm watching the suspect very closely and I see the knife in his hand. Well, the officer that fired the shots in this incident saw an object in the man's hand, but he didn't recognize it as a knife initially. He says it wasn't until he got to a certain point, as he's charging at the officer says, oh, that's a knife. And if all you have is the video clip without all that other information, man, we spin our wheels so much on the internet, some of these conversations and everything. And I don't know the Achilles Hills tactical people from India. I've never interacted with any of them that I know of. I only recently heard about them. And then there was an incident at one of their classes here a week or so ago, and they put out a little short clip about it.
P321.
Yeah. And there's all sorts of commentary. Like, he should have done this. He should have done that, whatever. Well, you didn't see what happened after the clip stopped.
Or before it
Or
started,
before.
you know.
Yeah. You didn't see who else was doing what, everything else. But so we're going to second guess this guy on things that he may or may not have done. I just don't get it. And that you're talking about the conventional wisdom there, Frank, man, we're so quick to adopt things and parrot things, but they might not have any basis in reality. Courtney, did you think of anything else you wanted to throw in there?
Really the only other thing was, well, for one, I did take your range class, and I appreciate something that was obviously a low round count, and the fact that we did something else other than how fast can you draw. I'm certainly appreciative of that, because that's something I'll beat myself up over all the time. So it was something different. So that was nice. But also, Tiff and Ox, I can't remember the title of it. The very last class Sunday, it was about gateway students. That kind of what me and Karen were getting through to gateway learners. That was kind of what Karen and I touched on, about how we received a lot of validation, because that is what we specialize in as gateway learners, kind of before we knew that was the term. But and we, the whole time, like, I told Tiffany afterwards, I was like, I felt like I was in church. Like, I was just in the back saying, yes, that's what we've been doing. So, and just, nodding my head the whole time. And I was just so excited that, we've been doing the right thing. And, and we're not the only ones doing it. So that was really nice. And the fact that that was the last class of the whole thing, like just leaving
Yes.
on that extremely positive note made it even better. So I don't know if that was on purpose, but that was great.
Mhm. Karen, did you have anything else you wanted to throw in?
No, I think I kind of like, I did not have a bad block of instruction, period. End of story.
I didn't either, yeah.
I took one wrestling class with Larry Linderman. Dude, is he scary or what? I mean, he is perfectly charming. And then he gives you like the crazy eyes and the crazy smile, and you're like, oh, there he is. And so, but that was the only get down in the dirt and get dirty class that I took. It was very well done. Uh let's see, Gabe White, um, his class on safety, for a class that he pulled out of thin air at the last minute. Very well done. I really liked his the way that he communicated that safety is a philosophy, it's not a plan. It is uh, it is the entirety of everything you do. It is not a briefing.
You broke up on
It
my end a
starts
little
with
bit
the
there.
first email that you send. Say what?
You broke up a little bit on my end. I heard safety is a
Oh, okay.
philosophy,
I'm
not a
so sorry.
plan, and then I lost everything after that.
Okay. Yeah, and that it's a process. Safety is a process, not a briefing. Um, and that safety really starts with organization. If you and so the things that we do that I didn't look at it this way, but all of the things that we all do just to put on a smooth class, those are the
Mhm.
building blocks for all of your safety, every bit of it. Um, and so I was like, oh man, Courtney, you would have loved this class, but she was in a shooting block. I was like, this is right up your alley because Courtney is the one who keeps us organized. She is very much the cross the
Mhm.
T's, dot the I's. Is all the paperwork done? Do we have everything packed? Is everything, she front loads everything. She's very, very good at that. Um, I'm very good when things fall apart. You know, here's how we slap the band-aid on it and here's how we move on. You know, Um, so she is a decision planner. I am just a decision maker in the moment that works well for us. But she would have really, that class, that little bitty nugget is going to save us from a lawsuit. I'm going to tell you that right now. So,
Well, and that's why we go to these things that was another
yes,
thing you and I did. We divided and conquered.
yes, we
Like
did.
I think we did some classroom stuff together, but like all the range stuff we were separated, and you
Hmm.
even took some classroom stuff that I didn't. So that was an advantage too. So
So yeah, but the quality of the instruction, like I said before, was great. Um, you could tell that every speaker had been there and done that before. John Farnham was just a charmer. He is such a charming man. And, it was really nice just getting to listen to his reminiscences. I can't even say that whole word. His, uh, his remember wins,
Mhm.
and how the remember wins actually apply to now if you'll pay attention and use them for what they're for. Um, he was so charming. And Claude, I love Claude a lot, but I love nerds. I I love nerds a lot. And no, but honestly, and this is for anybody out there who's watching it, if you haven't subscribed to Claude's Patreon for $5 a month, buddy, you are missing out. If you want to know anything about a revolver, it's on Claude's
Mhm.
page. All the drills, all the research, all the everything, it's all there. If you think you want to research a topic, you better go check Claude's Patreon first because he probably already did it. You know,
Yeah.
if you want to expand on that, excellent. If you want to collaborate with him, send him a message. He'll be happy to nerd out with you. He's great. I love him. So, but I had never actually been in a classroom with Claude. So that was a treat for me. So,
Yeah, several things there. Going back to Gabe White's class on safety, I think this is a Gabe White quote. Disorganization is the enemy of safety.
yes.
That is a quote.
I think that is a Gabe one.
I may
Uh,
have that in my notes.
that is something that is very important for every instructor out there to pay close attention to. And that starts when people pull into the range.
Hmm.
Um,
I mean, how many times have you been to a class? I know
mhm,
Courtney and I have been to several where you don't know where you're going.
mhm,
Nobody greets you at the door.
yep,
Um, it's not a welcoming atmosphere at all.
mhm,
Um, there was not enough communication prior to the class so that you know exactly where to show up and what time to be there and what gear to be in. Look, man, be in the proper place at the proper time in the proper uniform. Don't mess that up. But if you don't tell me, then I'm going to mess it up. And then I look like the fool. That's wrong. And that's all just straight organization. When you actually give me your medical brief and you can't find your aid bag, that's a problem. You know, when you're given a medical brief and you expect all your students to show up with their own supplies. No, you have to plan for people not to have those things. And so that is a key that, man, I don't know if I want to learn what you're here to teach me. You know,
mhm.
can I trust what you're going to say? Is it going to be valuable? Is it going to be worth my time, or have I wasted my money and my time? The money I'm not worried about. The time I can't get back. So,
Something as simple as Googling the closest hospitals to the ranges where you'll be
yeah.
teaching and having those addresses saved in notes on your phone or emailing those directions to yourself. So all you got to do is scroll to something and hit a button so you can go versus panic trying to find where we're going to go if we have to go. Uh, just something that simple. What you said, greeting people in the parking lot,
Mhm.
you know, keeps negligent gun handling from happening in the parking lot or helps prevent. Some
Helps.
people are bound and determined. All that kind of thing. And when you talk about the organization, that's why so much stuff gets put into tech. How could we do this with 400 participants without strict organization of do not handle weapons here? Go to this spot over here to do that. Go find somebody in a red shirt. They will take care of you.
Well, I
All
mean,
of
and
that.
even Tiffany had the live chat, the Zoom class,
Mm-hmm.
a month or two out for first timers saying, hey, this
Yeah.
is where you come to ask all your questions. That
Yeah.
was amazing.
Right.
You know, that was great.
Um, you reference guys like Claude, Tom, Farnham, you, and all of those guys of that generation. Tom is fond of saying that we tend to go in 15-year cycles in the training business, the training world. Those guys are in their third cycle. They've seen stuff come and go around again. A lot of these people that just discovered firearms training last week, last month, last year, and then all of a sudden have a YouTube channel and Instagram page and think they have discovered the secret sauce to everything. And it's just all those old fuds don't know what they're talking about. Those guys have seen it come and go the
And
third
they had
time
crappier
now.
equipment. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, they had to make adjustments that
Yeah.
technology has taken care of the problem,
Right.
you know.
Yeah. Guys who were around when your choices were a Smith and Wesson revolver or a 1911 to the plethora of options that we have now that are all viable and that have stayed relevant throughout that whole multitude of processes. Um, Larry Mudgett, who I think is probably the greatest living firearms instructor out there, you know, did the transition from revolvers to automatic for the LAPD in 1985. So he had to invent, come up with all sorts of great ways to teach when they were shooting revolvers. And then he had to reinvent all of that when they went to automatics and did it marvelously so. Those are the guys that we should be paying attention and listening to. The guy that set up his Instagram account and can do a remarkably fast draw to a fixed target with a wide A zone at a known distance and just sits there and just waits for the beat to go to do all that kind of stuff. Let's get locked in on the thought process side of this, not necessarily the metric side of it. And no, that is not an excuse to not be good. No, none of them ever say any of that. All right. We are getting close to an hour and a half, so just go around and each of you, if you have any kind of final thought from TacCon, and if you have anything upcoming that you would like to put out to the listeners, please feel free to do so. And any kind of wishful thinking for future TacCons, I'd kind of like to hear that too. Courtney?
Really the only thing just the final point was that how I mentioned earlier about one of my expectations of like, a lot of big names being there and kind of how intimidating that was.
Mhm.
What I forgot to mention was the fact that when I got there, I was welcomed with open arms. Like I was a little nervous when we did the first time attendee ribbon on our badges because I was like, oh crap, now I got a spotlight on me. But I feel like that was very beneficial because that let people know, like, hey, I might look a little lost or something
Mhm.
like that. And but everybody was so nice. Like, it didn't take long for me to feel really comfortable there. Especially because there's a lot of people and I have a problem with that anyway. But I mean it was just fantastic. Like people I didn't know who they were coming up to me and like, are you having a good time? Can I help you with anything? And so that was just absolutely phenomenal. So
All right. Greg?
Final thoughts. Coming up, I've got a kills intensive pistol class coming up next weekend at DPC. Looking forward to that. Wishful thinking at TacCon, man. I don't know if it could get much better. Just more cognitive, more perception stuff, more thinking stuff. I think that's vital, and I think so many people chase that 1 second draw, as you say, and man, I'm afraid if I drew and shot somebody that quick, I might miss a chance to not have to shoot somebody and may end up in prison because I was just fast. So more of that kind of stuff, but I know that doesn't sell near as much as the bang bang pow pow stuff does. I get it, right? But I think you guys all do a great job. Keep it up.
Thank you. Right?
Yeah. So the first time ribbon, I had some fun with that because I put one on. I'm an old baseball player, and rookies get hazed,
Mm-hmm.
and there was no hazing. Uh, everybody was supportive. Everybody was outgoing. I didn't see a single person there who probably didn't have a smile on their face at least once, me included. And I've got a stone face. I smile rarely. Uh, so the supportive nature of the event is what really stands out. Obviously, the quality of the instruction and the people who are coming in to present is just that's the best there is. So the one word that I would have for maybe some of those Instagrammers, if you're actually really serious and you're just not about the clicks, maybe y'all should go to TacCon once and learn something.
There you go. There you go. Karen?
I already mentioned I was a nerd, right?
Mm-hmm.
So nobody's gonna never mind. That is it. That is a very niche subject, and I will take that up with you and earn later and probably Gale House.
Okay.
But is this an event? And this was the question that I had, and it was answered two different ways. TacCon is an open enrollment event,
Mm-hmm.
correct?
Yes.
It is geared for instructors, simply because everybody who's instructing is an instructor.
Mhm.
I think that the assumption is made, but there were a number of people there who were just there for like the love of the game, I guess. I don't know how else to explain it. So, um, I know why I was there. This was part of my continuing education.
Mhm.
Uh, I would love to be able to be a participant who was just there for the love of the game. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you saying that it's geared to instructors. There was someone in the evals that wrote that they had a good time even though they weren't the target audience because they're not an instructor. Folks, it's not geared towards just instructors. It's an open enrollment. We
Mm-hmm.
had we try to have something for everyone
Right. And
and
it may have just
all.
been the classes that I picked were
Yeah.
instructor
Mhm.
focused.
Yeah.
So, um,
Well, you got Tim Reedy's holster success class,
I
and
took
that's
his competition class. I mean, come on.
yeah.
That was a fun ride.
It
He's
was.
great, you know.
Well,
So
I will say that I limited both of my live fire classes to either range master certified or law enforcement instructors, and I did so for a reason. Um, we had 2 hour live fire blocks, and you can only get so much done in 2 hours.
mhm,
And if it's just a smorgasbord mixed bag of whoever walks up to the line, you may have someone that shows up that they showed up hoping that someone would teach them how to draw their pistol from a holster. And we're doing something that is well beyond that. I didn't want people to be out of their depth and out of their grasp. And I also didn't want to have to stop, you know, and spend 30 minutes teaching safe, holster, presenting from the holster when we wanted to hit a very specific, narrow subject matter. 2 hour windows are hard, extremely
yes.
hard. And we have tossed around things like having a mandatory safety block for first time attendees and all that kind of stuff, unless you've taken other classes. And there's no 100% perfect answer to that. And I don't think that suggestion is actually going to come to pass. Um, but after hearing your comment and seeing that one in the evals, I think that's something for us to talk about. Um, is how can we do something to, I guess, to not have the perception that it is an instructor only event, because it's not, in the least. Um, I think that's something to chew on, and it gives me an idea for a class that well, not really a class, but a 2 hour block for next year that I was considering, and I may go down that road. That was something. All right. Well, folks, I appreciate you coming on tonight and taking your time to share your events, your thoughts on the event with us. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I hope the audience does as well. And speaking of the audience, we know that your number one asset is your time. Thank you for choosing to spend it with us.